The peeling city transit map on the wall of the northbound platform was as familiar to me as my own reflection. For 4 years I had taken the Green Line from Sycamore Station to Kensington Tower, 5 mornings a week at 7:30 and 5 evenings a week at 6:10. On Friday, 2 weeks after my girlfriend left and 3 days after my supervisor advised me to consider new career paths, I was studying the map the way a defeated boxer studies the mat, head bowed, vision swimming. That was when I noticed the extra stop. The Green Line had always ended at Meadows Terminal. There was no rail beyond it, only a wall stained with 70 years of soot. But tonight, below the neat column of circles representing each station, another appeared, faded gray, as though printed and then half erased. Its name, rendered in tiny serifed letters, was Linden. I had written this line long enough to recognize every scratch and sticker on its signage. The sudden appearance of a phantom station jolted me upright. I checked the digital directory above the ticket gates. It too listed Linden, right after Meadows. No one else on the platform seemed to notice. Commuters stared at their phones, swiped to pay, checked the arrival times. If the map had sprouted a fresh bloom of ink, I was the only gardener who cared. The train arrived in a gust of hot metallic air. I took my usual seat, third car, left side, beside the window where the graffiti spelled out "Sorry" in crooked silver letters. As the doors hissed shut, the automated voice chirped, "Next stop, Meadows Terminal." There was no mention of Linden. By the time we braked at Meadows, the new station had faded from my mind, displaced by thoughts of the empty apartment waiting for me and the spreadsheet errors that had cost the firm 3 clients. Only that night, when I lay sleepless on the futon, did the memory return. I unlocked my phone and scrolled through transit forums. No search returned a Green Line station called Linden. The Metropolitan Transportation Authority's website ended its line diagram at Meadows. I convinced myself it had been a trick of the light, or maybe my own exhaustion. Still, as I finally drifted into a shallow slumber, the name pulsed behind my eyelids like a dying star. Monday morning, I awoke to a foreclosure notice slipped under my door. The bank had tired of my partial payments. Carrying that envelope felt like carrying a tombstone. On the platform, I found the subway map, worn and grimy, but Lind was once again absent. Only the standard 15 circles sat beneath the green stripe. With nothing to distract me, I spent the ride rehearsing resignation speeches. At the office, my badge refused to unlock the turnstile. Security handed me a cardboard box and watched while I packed it. Everyone pretended not to stare. Between the desk plants and novelty mugs, I caught the odor of pity and relief. My colleagues grateful someone else had been chosen. I left the building clutching my box like a shield and walked until the streets narrowed into alleyways painted with condemnation. Rent, due, dirt, leave. I reached Meadows Terminal by habit rather than choice. It was mid-afternoon, off-peak, the station mostly empty. I descended the escalator and froze. The large route map above the ticket machines now ended not with Meadows, but Linden. The name was still gray, bordering on transparent, but it was unmistakable. In the sick, fluorescent glow, the letters seemed to blink, encouraging me to cradle my failures and step forward. A man stood beside me, staring at the map with an expression I recognized too well. Eyes hollow, mouth slack, shoulders collapsed inward. His suit hung off him like melted wax. Without turning, he said, "You see it too?" It took me a moment to respond. "Linden?" He nodded. "That stop wasn't there yesterday. Been riding this line 20 years. He chuckled without humor. "Guess they're expanding to nowhere." A train screeched into the station. Its destination display read "Not in service." Yet the doors slid open and the interior lights glowed a soft amber instead of the usual harsh white. An operator leaned halfway out of the front cab, index finger pressed to his lips in a conspiratorial hush. The broken man beside me stepped on board as though summoned. 2 women followed, one wiping tears, the other clutching an eviction notice. A teenager with bruises around his neck drifted in their wake. Each carried the unmistakable weight of defeat. I wanted to shout a warning, but my voice tangled in my throat. I was suddenly certain that if I stepped onto that train, I would never be asked to leave, never be judged, never be forced to perform the humiliating charade of living again. The idea smothered me with the comfort of a heavy blanket on a frigid night. Before I could decide, the doors sealed with the finality of a coffin lid, and the train glided away faster than any I had seen, until the darkness swallowed its last red taillight. For hours, I sat on a bench, waiting for another. None came. Eventually, I trudged home, my box of office detritus beating against my thigh. I told myself the experience had been a hallucination, the product of hunger, stress, and shame. For a time I believed it, until I read the morning paper. Subway mystery. Green Line train disappears from track. 34 passengers unaccounted for. No indication train left the yard. Officials baffled. I ran my finger over the list of missing commuters. The broken man in the melted suit. The weeping woman. The bruised teenager. All vanished between Sycamore and Meadows, last seen boarding a ghost service at 3:17 p.m. The article ended with a plea for information and a hotline number. My chest tightened until I feared my ribs would burst. That night, I avoided the subway. I walked the streets for hours, circling the same 3 blocks like a dog who cannot choose where to die. When my legs could no longer carry me, I descended into Sycamore Station, intending only to sit, to breathe recycled air, to exist in the anonymity of underground space. On the wall hung the older version of the map, 15 stops ending in Meadows. Relief breezed through me, weak but welcome. I closed my eyes. Next train to Meadows arriving in 2 minutes, the PA announced. When I opened my eyes again, the map had 16 circles. Linden glimmered. I backed away, heartbeat ragged. People around me remained oblivious. A woman in athletic wear laughed into her phone. A construction worker drummed on a steel beam. No one noticed the shifting diagram. The approaching train slowed, brakes screaming. Its lighted sign did not say, "Not in service." It said, "Linden." Just that, in bright green capitals. The doors opened, sighing. Inside, I glimpsed the same soft amber glow, the same velvet seats that did not belong in any city railcar I knew. No advertisements papered the walls. No trash littered the floor. It looked less like public transit and more like the antechamber of a temple. No conductor leaned out this time. The interior yawned empty, expectant. I should have run. Instead, I stepped on board. The doors whispered shut and the train launched forward with impossible smoothness, as though a magnetic hand guided it. Outside the windows, tunnels blurred into silver fog. The familiar sequence of stations did not arrive. We seemed to bypass them entirely, riding some hidden artery beneath their foundations. There were no other passengers. My reflection in the window looked translucent, almost not there. I sat, hands clasped so tight my knuckles shone. After what could have been minutes or hours, a sense of time had abandoned me. The floodlights outside dimmed, darkness pressed against the glass like liquid night. Then a voice drifted through the carriage, soft and genderless, resonating without speakers. "We are now approaching Linden. Last stop. All who alight here will find what they have ceased to seek." A tremor ran through me. My memory summoned random images. My girlfriend laughing in the snow. My mother lifting me to reach the top shelf. The thrill of receiving my first paycheck. Each image cracked and dissolved like ice against salt. The voice, gentle yet insistent, returned. "Please prepare to disembark." The train decelerated. Across the aisle, a door slid open into the next car. A figure stood there, faceless, more shadow than flesh. It beckoned. My limbs floated upward without instruction. I rose. Before stepping through, I glanced back down the car. At the far end, opposite the beckoning silhouette, a second doorway had opened. Beyond it I glimpsed something unexpected, a shimmer of daylight, pale but genuine, carrying the scent of rain and soil. Hope, thin as spider silk, tugged at me. The faceless figure extended an arm toward the platform, a place of unmoving air, silent platforms and stagnant light waited beyond. I sensed it was a station built of echoes where nothing happened, because nothing needed to. A final destination for those resigned to stillness. But the other doorway, somehow that led upward, not outward. I felt a breeze, heard a gull, smelled coffee, all faint, as though carried on a fragile channel. The shadow's presence grew heavier. While it had no eyes, I felt it watching, urging me onto the platform. Each heartbeat slowed, each inhale turned shallow. I realized I was choosing between oblivion dressed as solace and uncertainty dressed as struggle. I wanted to want to live. I simply did not remember how. My palms met, rubbed, felt heat. That warmth belonged to me. It was mine to keep or squander. I turned my back on the shadow and sprinted toward the opposite door. A howl rose behind me, not so much sound as sudden vacuum. The moment my foot crossed the threshold, the door clanged shut. The train trembled violently, as though enraged. I stumbled into a narrow maintenance corridor lit by flickering bulbs. Ahead, iron stairs spiraled upward. I climbed. With each flight, the air freshened. Cramps yanked at my calves, but the pain felt real, and real mattered. At last, a rusted hatch appeared overhead, and the door jerked open. I shoved, and it yielded, spilling me into early dawn. I collapsed onto dew-wet grass, not a city plaza or sidewalk grass, stretching in unkempt tufts between broken slabs of concrete. I found myself within the ruins of an abandoned depot, half swallowed by vines. Birds nested in rustic girders. I recognized nothing of the skyline. Only when I spotted a distant billboard announcing a defunct soda brand last seen in my childhood did I realize I stood inside the carcass of old Linden Station, closed before I was born. Somehow the phantom train had delivered me to a place the official network had buried. One could still reach it, but only if one looked inward long enough to forget forward. Yet I had left the train, and in doing so, had rejoined time. A metallic screech echoed beneath me as though the train, furious at my escape, was reversing, vanishing into whatever crevasse had birthed it. I crawled to the hatch and peered down. Blackness. No rail, no tunnel, only packed earth. The passage had sealed itself. I was alone, but alive, and the sky-thin slate, fragile with morning, was, for the first time in weeks, above me. It took 2 hours to hike through the neglected industrial park encircling the station. When I finally emerged onto a main road, I flagged a delivery van. The driver eyed my filthy clothes and bleeding knuckles but let me sit in the cargo bay. We listened to a radio talk show discussing the missing Green Line passengers. Authorities now theorized electrical failure, data corruption, maybe terrorism. The host scoffed at callers claiming they'd seen the vanished train barreling through wrong tunnels, shaking the platform like thunder. I stayed silent. Back in the city, I showered, changed, and rode a bus, no subways, to the precinct station. A detective took my statement without interrupting. When I finished, he closed his notebook and said, "We're asking everyone the same question. Why did the train stop for you?" I thought of the map that changed only for the hopeless, because I thought nothing else would. "Why did you get off?" I swallowed. "Because there was still something else." He exhaled slowly, then gestured to the blinds. Outside, a sliver of sunlight pierced heavy clouds. "If you remember what that something is," he said, "hold on to it. Not everyone does." Weeks passed. I secured part-time work at a print shop, stocking paper and cleaning presses. Humble, but each paycheck felt honest, earned without deceit. I began seeing a therapist who reminded me that climbing from darkness is neither swift nor linear. Some nights I stayed awake until dawn, fearful of sleep that might return me to the phantom platform. Yet each morning I woke in my own bed. The newspapers eventually moved on. The Green Line trains resumed normal schedules. Maps citywide were inspected and reprinted, just in case. None contained Linden. The vanished passengers never returned. One wet evening, I stood once again at Sycamore Station. My therapist had encouraged me to confront fears gradually, so I descended the concrete steps, heart thumping. The map remained unchanged. 15 stops. Meadows Terminal as the end of the line. I waited for a train, watching tired office workers and bleary students shuffle past. While the platform clock ticked, an older woman sank onto the bench beside me. Face sallow with exhaustion, she sighed, rubbing swollen fingers. On the wall across from us, the map trembled. No breathed, its ink shifting like ants. A ghostly 16th circle emerged at the bottom. I blinked hard. Lyndon hovered, translucent as moonlight. The woman beside me pinched the bridge of her nose, then stared directly at the map. A small sound escaped her, half sob, half hymn. I understood at once she could see it too, and I heard the platforms rumble, changing, thinning, sliding into the wrong frequency that heralded the impossible service. I leaned toward her. "Ma'am," I said, voice barely above the rail hum. "Do you have someone you can call? Someone who can meet you, right now?" Tears brightened her eyes. "My daughter," she whispered, "but she hasn't spoken to me in—" "Call her," I urged, pressing my phone into her hand. "Tell her you're at Sycamore. Tell her you need dinner, a story, anything." The ghost train's headlight shimmered in the tunnel mouth, green where it should have been white. The woman stared toward it with magnetic resignation. "Please," I said, placing my palm over hers. "There's still something else." I felt her trembling. Then she nodded. She lifted the phone. The approaching train, sensing perhaps that its quarry had slipped, dimmed. Its light folded inward and the rails fell silent. When I looked back at the map, Lyndon had receded, the ink retreating beneath the plastic until only meadows remained. The woman clutched the phone, sobbing, words spilling out. "Hi, sweetheart, it's Mom. I'm okay." "No, I just wanted to hear your voice." A minute later, she wrapped both arms around me in gratitude and hurried up the stairs to street level, where real weather waited. I remained, listening to the ordinary rumble of an ordinary train arriving for an ordinary commute. It screeched, sparked, and opened its grimy silver doors. I boarded, claimed my usual seat beneath the sorry graffiti, and let the hustle of strangers crowd around me. As we pulled from the station, I glanced at the map above the doors. Only 15 circles. I allowed myself a slow, private smile. The phantom stop would always wait, patient and hungry. But so would phone calls, dawn skies, print shop paychecks, and strangers who could pull each other back without even knowing why. The train rattled on toward Meadows, and I rattled with it, imperfect yet present. One more passenger who, for this ride at least, had chosen return.